Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, I have another Mighty game review. Kind of continuing on here with my whole Spooktober review special. And today's video is going to actually cover Ghostbusters Remastered. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit here about the game, and then I'm going to dive into my actual review. Let's start off with the original developer was Terminal Reality and Red Fly Studio. Basically, they kind of split up the development between the different systems. I'm not going to dive too much in there in that. Now, the Remastered is done by Saber Interactive. The publisher is Atari Interactive and Mad Dog Games. Mad Dog Games did the Remastered. Atari Interactive was the original. Now, the original released in 2009 for Windows PC, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, PSP, and Nintendo Wii. The Remastered was only done for Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Windows PC. Now, with that being said, the original was released in 2009, with the Remastered being released October of 2019. So actually, this is a fairly new game for me. It's only about 3 years old, but I'm a little slow at times getting to new games, so that's neither here nor there. So let's dive on into the whole premise of the game. So the premise of the game is you're playing as a new member of the Ghostbusters, the Rookie, if you will, that's literally the name tag on his uniform is Rookie. No one ever addresses him by name. They call him Champ, Rookie, Greenhorn, all kinds of stuff like that. So I have no idea what the main character's name is. Doesn't really matter. I guess that helps with the immersion because you can put yourself in the character's shoes then if the character doesn't have a name. Now, that being said, essentially what you're doing is you're investigating a series of paranormal activity that essentially will lead to a catastrophic world-ending event as essentially the world of the paranormal is coming over to the material plane, the Earth, if you will, for those who aren't familiar with plane travel type stuff. I'm not talking planes as in aircraft. I'm talking planes as like the infernal plane. Yeah, nerd stuff, whatever. Anyway, now the game itself, the graphics are dated, but they're fine generally for the most part. The best part I actually found about the game was the story. Now, that being said, I did do some research because when I was playing through there, it's like, wow, this kind of feels like this could have actually been kind of a pseudo Ghostbusters 3. And here to find out is Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd was working on a script for Ghostbusters 3 shortly after Ghostbusters 2 had finished. And while the movie never happened, well, it kind of did happen with Ghostbusters Afterlife, but whatever. Even though it never really happened, some elements of that script got brought over to the game. Because actually Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis actually had put the script together for Ghostbusters, the video game, which I found that actually really cool to find out. I really like the authentic sounds. The PKE meter has the authentic sounds, the trap, the way the Proton Pack sounds. Honestly, like the way the equipment looks for the most part. I know the PKE meter screen is not like right on the money, which is whatever. It works for the premise of the game. But the PKE meter looks pretty much spot on outside of the screen itself. One of the things I found actually rather cool was literally the return of the actors. All the actors from Ghostbusters actually had returned to do voice lines for the game, even including, from what I can tell, Janine, who was actually really realistically a minor character for the Ghostbusters films. And it was nice to more or less see the boys back in the boots as the Ghostbusters. Now, that being said, so there's no confusion here, yes, the voice for Egon is Harold Ramis, and that's because the original game was done before Harold Ramis had passed away. Next thing, interactive environment in the firehouse. The environment is interactive. You can, there's different artifacts you can collect through the game. And there's actually arcade machines. You can interact with that stuff. And yes, folks, the firehouse does have the poles. And yes, they still work. I had to check as soon as I saw the firehouse. I was inside the firehouse. I had to run to find out if the poles still work. And yes, I can confirm they still do. That being said, too, the Proton Pack looks amazing. I really like the look of the Proton Pack. It's not perfect. You know, it's got nicks and scratches in the paint. As well as the nice thing is about the Proton Pack and how it works, is it actually kind of works as a pseudo HUD, if you will. You don't actually have a HUD in this game. The Proton Pack itself actually shows more or less a HUD if you're paying attention to it. But it'll show your heat gauge for the Proton Pack, your health, as well as what mode you are currently in by looking at the Proton Pack. I actually think that was really cool, really inventive. I know some games that have done that kind of stuff in the past. I want to say, though, this was probably one of the best implementations I ever seen for that. I thought that was just really cool how they did that. I like the great mix of action and investigation as well in the game. It gives you more of a feel of that you're actually a Ghostbuster. That it's not all just going in there and busting ghosts. That you have to track these things down and find out what's going on and things of that nature. And honestly, I think the mix is really good because just as I would start getting bored doing the investigative part, there'd be some action. And just as I started getting bored of the action part, the pace would slow down to doing investigative stuff. So I can't really complain about that. There's also a lot of callbacks to the original movies. The first and second movie, I mean, you actually end up fighting the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in this. You actually go to the library is one of the locations in the game. Of course, the fire hall's there, as well as some of the collectibles. I was talking about the interactive collectibles. Well, one of those collectibles is actually a painting of Vigo the Carpathian from Ghostbusters 2. And yes, when you interact with the painting, he does talk to you. Acts like he's going to rule the world from a painting. What a joke. Now, that being said, the game is actually rather short. It's actually only about 8.5 hours. I think I beat it in about 9, and that was actually trying to find like all the different collectibles and stuff that I could find. So not bad for length-wise, which I would say it's actually probably pretty good that they have it around the 8-hour mark. Because essentially, I think any longer, the game would actually get boring and stale, and it would actually hurt the experience of the game itself. But I think any shorter would also cheapen the would kind of cheapen the story, if you will. You'd have to cut a bunch of story elements out. So I think they pretty much nailed it for the length of the game. It does have a lot of the original official music from the different various movies from Ghostbusters 1 and 2, as well as it does have some new music. I'm not going to say it's got a lot, but a lot of callbacks to the original movie. And I would have to say, with all that stuff being said, the return of the actors, the music, the sounds, etc., definitely heavily fan-serviced. Now, things that I kind of disliked here was there was actually upgrades, Proton Pack upgrades and etc. And I kind of felt like that was just implemented to check boxes because everyone else does it. Like every game does it now. So it's, I don't know, maybe it's kind of losing luster. Yeah, there you go. The pull still works. Some sounds do fall short at times, especially with the sounds of the actors' voices. And what that is like there was points where it was like I was actually talking to the guys on the radio, but it sounded like they were standing right next to me talking instead of over a radio. But then other times they would be talking to me and it would sound like it was on a radio. That was probably something that should have been worked on when they were developing the remaster. Because honestly, when I was looking at a lot of stuff, it looks like to me for the remastered, they didn't really do anything except for smooth it out a bit more. They didn't seem to do a whole lot, to be honest. Another issue I found is some of the there's black slime in the game, and you can damage that with the slime cannon. And I noticed that there was a couple spots here and there that you could not damage, could not remove. Not a big deal. It wasn't game breaking, but it was kind of a glitch I did notice. I didn't really notice any other glitches. And with that being said, I also seen people actually complain about FPS issues as well as game crashes online. And I'm going to have to say what that is if you're playing on a PC, your mileage is going to vary. I had no issues with that at all. The game ran like 100% the whole time, 60 FPS. There was no game crashes, no hiccups, no slow loads. It just ran great. It just worked, to be honest. Now, some of the movie clips in the game, actually pretty much all the actual movie clips in the game, definitely looks off. Like, those do not look like they were worked on at all. They look kind of grainy. They look out of place compared to rest of the game. And I would suspect that if I went back and played this on a PS3, it would not look like that. It would look like it matches the game, if you will. Just one of those things I noticed. Once again, definitely something that probably should have been worked on a bit more when they decide to do the HD remastered version. Now, the gameplay can get a little repetitive, and I mean, essentially, it's the same thing over and over again, where it's, okay, find a ghost. Okay, found the ghost. Now, bust the ghost. Okay, now trap him. Okay, now back to find the ghost. You know, and it's just a constant circle of that. Now, the pacing of that stuff is, like I said earlier, is good, but it like once you start hitting the 8-hour mark, it starts getting a little repetitive in those ends. The voice lines at times feel a little weak, and that's mostly the delivery from the actors themselves. I don't know why. To me, it just felt like at times both Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd was just kind of phoning it in. That might be just a me thing. Now, when it came to Janine, her voice lines were like right on the money the whole time. But your interaction, well, you really don't interact with Janine, but Janine's voice lines, they're not as heavy as the other guys in the game. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. Could have been the quality of the recording, whatever. I mean, generally, for the most part, it's fine. They just felt lackluster at times. AI at times also feels a bit potato. And pretty much what I'm pointing at here is what that is. It's not so much the ghost, but at times the other characters would run in front of my Proton stream while I'm trying to bust a ghost. And it actually happened fairly regularly. It got to the point where it's like, wow, the AI of the guys is actually not really the best. That being said, there is a lot of chaos going on, and of course you're trying to move out of the way of the chaos, but still, yeah, run in front of my Proton streams.
Here's the thing.
Fine. Listen,
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
Also, at times, I do feel like the game gives you quite a bit of a sensory overload. I mean, sometimes there's just so much stuff going on, it's hard to track what's going on. It's hard to look at the environment. It's even actually hard just to, you know, kind of enjoy just the general overall design of the game and the atmosphere. Not saying the atmosphere is super special, although there is some pretty good detail in the atmosphere, but at times it can be overlooked because there's so much flashing and explosions and, you know, photon streams all over the place. It's just, you know, makes my eyes melt at times because there's just so much going on. Now, that being said, this is on Steam and Epic Games. Have I said fuck Epic Games recently? For $25. I think the game was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it. But this is the part I have to say about that is I think you actually have to be a fan of the Ghostbusters movies, particularly the originals, to actually enjoy this game and to get all the different references and like I said, just the general overall look and feel of the game. So if you're not a fan of the original 2 movies, don't bother with this game. If you are a fan of the original 2 movies, I would say yes, this game is actually a game worth getting. With all that being said, $25 is kind of pushing it, but I do actually recommend this game. Like I said, I had fun with it, and what's the point of video games except for to have fun with them? But anyway, folks, that is my review of Ghostbusters Remastered. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for tuning in. There will be another Spooktober video this month. Actually, there's 3 more currently planned at the time of recording this. So basically 1 for every week of October. Anyway, folks, hopefully once again you all enjoyed it and have yourself a wonderful day.